Hi, good morning. Welcome to Business by Design Online. I'm Katie Sevenance. I am your host for our Tips from the Top success stories, success tips, techniques, things that can help you bring your business to the next level. I cannot wait for you to meet my new friend because we just started talking and we have discovered we have so much in common. I want you to meet our guest today, Lynn Lambrecht, and hopefully I'm saying that right. Lynn and I go way back and we didn't even know it. Good morning,
This world
Lynn.
is a really small place. Hi, everybody. Katie, thank you for making me just start my wonderful morning with a laugh. I mean, this is
Yes,
hilarious. You guys, we have our paths crossed in the 90s.
that
So
is
she
so
knows
crazy. Like,
everybody that I know we have our mutual friends, but I mean, it's hilarious.
yes, that is so crazy. My past experience, I mean, that's a long time ago, right? How many years ago? Oh
I
my
know. Don't
God.
even go there. Come on. I was just telling Katie, everyone, I haven't dyed my hair yet, and I'm starting to get, and I don't think I'm going to, but I mean,
No,
I'm getting all my pixie dust and all of that. Every one of them is earned, but I mean, at
exactly.
that point, I had no pixie dust. Let's put it that way.
Oh my gosh. So this is so crazy because we were both in the travel business. I started with Princess Cruises probably in 83,
I
84. I
started with
did.
Northwest Orient as the first woman sales rep in the San Francisco office in 1983 after I finished my
Oh my
grad paper.
gosh. Okay, and then I worked for Princess Cruises and then Renaissance Cruises, so 20 years in the cruise business as a sales rep.
You in
And
aviation all
oh
over
my
the world.
gosh. And we lived in the same places. We didn't know this until like just a minute ago. Joy, thanks for the connection. Good
I
morning,
know,
Joy.
I'm laughing. The world is a small place, you guys. 6 degrees of separation exists, but in travel, it's down to 2 because we've
Yeah, no,
all done something somewhere.
that is so crazy. I love it. So you were with Northwest Orient.
Yeah,
I'm
and
like
mostly
trying to think.
before
I
it
can see
became
the
Northwest
logos.
before it became Delta, but yeah, so I was with Northwest and then before I changed countries and companies, so yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Oh my gosh. And now you live in California.
I do. I've lived in 17 places in 35 years. It's one of
Wow.
those wandering gypsy pieces for me. Travel allowed me to do that, and I elected to do that within there. So that's been kind of the fun thing about like seizing the day and seizing life and having different
Yes.
patchwork quilt of experience. Yeah.
I love that. And it's funny, travel. One of my daughters, Charlie, who's on here this morning, she is also getting that feel of travel, which makes me so happy because that's what like lit my fire. I started in the travel business right after I had done a year in college and then got offered a job with a cruise line. And like all the places I've been, all the
Wow.
experiences just to get outside your back door. I mean,
I
holy
know.
cow, there's so much available to us.
Learning is sometimes wonderful from a book perspective, but I will tell you, on the ground experiential is the best. And I started in travel after after I got my graduate degree. So I'm the youngest of 3 children. I'm an oops child. I was raised on the Iowa border of Illinois. My brother started college when I started kindergarten. My
Wow.
sister was the miracle 8 years after that, and I was the trailing participle 5.5 after that. So poor mom and dad. My older siblings are very more staid, and
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 then
and
you
I
are the
came
free
out of
spirit.
the box, curious, conversational. I don't drink caffeine. I'm like this normally. I mean, I scare everybody, yeah. So caffeine I used to in travel, but I gave it up. But it's absolutely fascinating to me how we can come from the same family and be so have similarities and yet be so different. But no one in my family has ever worked in business. They're all doctors and dentists. So I didn't know what I didn't know. So I
Right.
decided at about age 5 that I was going to pay for college because I just thought that sounded kind of good, and started saving my money and all that stuff. And I went to college out of state. I went to grad school out of state. I was an RA in the dorms and a head res because that helped me pay for it. And then I moved to the Bay Area and got my job with Northwest. And I was traveling pretty much ever since.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. It's in my blood. I cannot wait until we can get out and explore again. And I've put a couple trips off.
I know. I think we all have. I know my brother, when he was in medical school, it was during Vietnam. And so he joined the Army for his internship and residency during Vietnam. And it's fascinating because our dad was in World War II as a tail gunner and based out of
Wow.
England. But mom had a travel bug too. I mean, we were as kids in the car always in the US, especially because older siblings and when Bill was based somewhere, blah, blah, blah. So we'd go. And my sister, she, went to grad school at Berkeley. She's back in the Midwest. But she lived in Europe. So and my brother lived in Europe. And so I was the last kid to live internationally when I left Northwest, and I joined United to go head United up in China. So I was
Wow.
overseeing Beijing and Shanghai, our daily operations, all aspects of it. So it was an interesting thing because my parents were older, and I
Mm.
said, Mom and Dad, all right, here are your passport applications. Here are checks to pay for them. I will buy you tickets. You're coming because my dad, after World War II, I mean, he didn't need a passport for that. He had never had a passport, neither had my mom. But they had always traveled to where I lived. And I mean,
Mm.
I lived in San Fran, Sacramento, LA, Cleveland, Seattle before moving to Beijing. And so, it was just natural. I said, come on, you're coming. You're coming.
Oh, I
And so
love
here
that.
they are, like in their late 70s. And I'm, in 40. I mean, my dad turned 40 when I was born. So I was definitely the oops in that for that generation. So when they came over, before they came, I practiced with them. I tapped my knee and I'd say knee, and I'd say ni hao, like how are you, ni hao. And so I was practicing, and I said, don't worry, when you land in the Beijing airport in 1995, it looks like home. There are cows, there's farmland, there's this, there's that. And my dad said, really? And I said, a lot of pollution, but it will be nighttime, so you'll be able to know. And oh my God, they were hysterical. They're like, you're right, Linny. It is like home.
Oh.
It's just really going to be busy in the daytime. With 12 million of our favorite friends.
Wow.
And then I had them come to Shanghai to see it too. And, it's so, yeah, good taking them down to like Nanjing Shilu to go to the Peace Hotel is a very, very old hotel. And
Ah.
there was during wartime, the Chinese and the Japanese didn't do so well together. They were, obviously not on the same side, but a Japanese community really still lives in Shanghai. And some of the older people, they created a jazz band, and so it was called the Old Man Jazz Band. And so I brought my mom and dad down to the Peace Hotel so that they could listen to the Old Man Jazz Band because
Oh.
dad was in dental school, after World War II. They listened to Nat King Cole in Chicago and, all of that at the clubs. And so my dad said, I love this. And I said, come, let's go meet them. And he looked at me and he said, really? And I said, I haven't done it before, but you know me. I'll say hi to anybody. And so I popped up there and I just said, sumimasen, which in Japanese is excuse me. And then, I said, this is my dad, my papa. And so they were like, oh, and all the old farts were like hanging out talking. My mom finally decided she better go, catch up on the fun because she didn't know what was happening. And they just sat back and said, thank you for allowing us to see the world with you.
Oh my God. Okay, that gives me goosebumps because that's how I feel. That's the feeling I want everyone I know to experience. Like
I
it's
know.
just we can be so close together, right? We all have such
So
similar
Charlie,
experiences.
go. Charlie, go. I'll be your
Yeah.
crazy aunt.
Good.
in California, and I'll because your mom I know will be supporting this too, but we'll just pump you up, baby girl. You
I
can
love it. I love it. Yes. So exciting. Oh my gosh. Okay. So it's funny, a little backstory because when you mentioned Barb Policastro,
yes.
she was around when my kids were growing up like babies. I mean, we got together a lot. That's so funny. Oh my
So
God.
Charlie, you know Barb. Okay, so Barb and I worked together in Ohio. Yeah, because I was overseeing Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, and Barb was down in
That's
Cincinnati.
so funny.
Yeah, yeah,
Gosh. So we may have met before and we don't even know it. You never know.
probably have. I mean,
I know.
some function somewhere.
That's funny. I love it.
Mhm.
So let me tell you a little bit about Business by Design Online. We started this, Joy and Phoenix and I, as a way to empower other women who maybe are considering starting a business, or maybe they already have a business, but especially this year, it's kind of gone stale a little bit, or just, maybe it's not horrible, but it just needs a little spark.
Mhm.
And part of what I do are these interviews that I love. Every Tuesday and Fridays, I've been going live, meeting
Fun.
super successful women like yourself, and then sharing your experiences with our audience. And it's been so much fun because, okay, number one, today, it's like so
I
crazy
feel like
that,
I just met a sister from a different mister, but yeah.
yes, that's what it feels like. It's so crazy. But yeah, so I cannot wait. So, okay, you're a traveler. What is the craziest thing you have ever done in your experiences?
Okay, so if you ask my brother and sister, they're going to tell you, my older sibs, that I was dropped by aliens, and so I made a declaration that I would see a sunrise and sunset in all 7 continents before the age of 55. And they were kind of like, yeah, 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 yeah. Now, of course, there's a side story to this because I felt funny when I lived in Beijing. Something felt off, and hanging out with a bunch of doctors and dentists all my life, I mean, I'm the woo woo side of them because I believe very much in Western medicine, but I'm also a listener of my body. So I asked my mom and dad to please make an appointment for me in Illinois when I was coming back to Chicago for meetings, and I drove across the state to Moline to go visit. And so I went, and the ophthalmologist who had interned under my grandfather dropped the equipment after doing some of the initial testing, which was never a good sign. So I asked him to please promise me that even though I was in my 30s, he still thought of me as being a baby. And I said, "You are not permitted to tell mom and dad anything. You will be in violation of HIPAA rules, and I will hold you to it." And my mom was an incredibly entertaining woman, but incredibly drama laden. And my dad and I were kind of the chill peeps. So I said, I don't want them worrying, and let's just figure this out. And he said, "Tell me again why you came." And I said, "I felt funny." And he said, "Oh my God, you were your grandmother, my mom's mom, from Ireland. I mean, we called it the Black Irish." So he said, "Your grandma." And I said, "Yeah, mom has it too. She just doesn't like to talk about it much." So we were laughing, and he said, "Okay, so I've never met anybody with eye pressure this high, and you've never had it checked. And I think you might have acute glaucoma, and you're going to go blind in a month." And I said, "Well, that isn't possible because I am seeing a sunrise and sunset in every continent by the time I'm 55. And he said, "Okay." And I said, "I mean it." And he said, "I can tell." And he said, "But you better find somebody closer to Beijing because you're going to need to come back within 8 weeks, because, or within like the 4 weeks, then every 4 to 8 after
Mm.
that, just to make sure that we keep it on track." Well, needless to say, I am I these are cheaters, dollar store cheaters. I have seen my sunrise and sunset in every continent,
Wow.
and the Antarctica trip was probably the one that had me almost. I think it was taken aback in stillness and an appreciation
Wow.
of nature. And so it's not like the epic adventure that some people might attribute to like the craziest trip. But I mean, just going there, I mean, I
Wow.
had so much. I mean, it was hilarious because I went on a cruise, my dear, and I got to Chile, got picked. I was with 2 guys that are friends of mine for years, so I was picked. I had bed bugs. So I got bit. So it was picked, bit, and bumped because I was trying. I don't have retirement passes because of family situations. I left my airline side to help care for parents, so I didn't, wasn't of retirement age. But so I still laugh because it was the most beautiful trip I've ever been on.
Mm.
So, it starts with being picked. Yeah, I had bed bugs, but guess what? They upgraded me to a freaking suite, and I had the most amazing view when we got into Antarctica ever. And I had
Wow.
wilts from, here up, but
Oh,
it didn't matter. And then getting bumped on the way back, it was like, I guess I'm not supposed to go home.
wow.
So everything is is attitude and everything is choice, even
Yes.
if it's adventures. So yeah, but oh, beautiful.
Yeah, I have not been there, but I've experienced many mornings in Alaska
Oh,
that
me too. I used to
just
oversee
like
Alaska from Seattle,
breathtaking.
and then up in Canada too. The Northern
Mhm.
Lights are
Yes.
amazing. I
Yes.
mean, it stills the soul.
Yeah. And sometimes that's all it is, just being quiet and taking it all in and realizing, especially when you can see as far as you can see, that you are just this little speck. Yeah. Oh my God. I love that. I
We are a
love
drop
that.
in, we are a drop in the ocean of life, and
Yeah.
any situation, any time frame, anything that occurs to us is just as small as that drop. So,
Right.
I mean, it can seem very chilling in the moment, and it can be, but yeah, it's just a question where you actually sit back and say, huh, what is true about this? Is it really a life changing impact, or is this just a momentary pause?
Right. Right. Wow. Oh, thank you for sharing that with us. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about your business. Tell me a little bit about how you switched from being in the travel business to your current business. Can you share a little bit about that with us so that we can learn a little more?
Yeah, in some ways, you guys, I didn't switch at all. I just extended. When I started with Northwest, I was their first woman sales rep in the San Fran office. And interestingly, because of my background with my family, but then also the crisis intervention trainings and things that I had had running residence halls and things of that nature, I was asked if I would consider becoming an emergency team responder. And so I was 22 out of grad school, living in San Francisco. And I said, hey, tell me what that entails. And they said, you would be called to work airplane crashes if we ever have one. And you would be assigned to work with a family or where the families gather or in the command center or on the ground where the plane goes down and in the morgue. And I said, yes, please sign me up. I know I'm incredibly vivacious, but I'm also very calm in a bad situation.
Mm.
And I have a service heart, and it's something that's really important to me that people receive information in a timely fashion. I'm an over communicator, that they have support and, guidance and, all of that stuff. Now, you can say that when you're 22 and say, oh, absolutely, blah, 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 but you have no idea what happens when it happens. And
Right.
I did work two crashes in my 20s. One, everyone died, and by the time I got there, I thought I'd be with a family, and yet the families had been assigned because I lived on the West Coast and it was in the Eastern time zone. So I actually worked the ground in the morgue during the day, and then I headed up the crisis phone lines for the family members from midnight to 6 in the morning.
Wow.
And I think it was that blessing in disguise having the daytime work and the nighttime work because I knew what was being, what we were doing during the daytime. But I was fully prepared for more of the absorbing the anger of me being a company representative and them losing a family member or a loved one. But what I wasn't prepared for was the complete lack of understanding of the practical day to day things that that person in their life had handled in an administrative side of life. And
Mm.
that was an eye opener for me because I haven't been married yet. And so when I looked at the whole, kind of, what do you mean you don't? Okay, hold on. Are you aware of this? And do you even know about this? And it was like, no, 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 no. Have you been in contact with her? No, 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 no. So we like setting up almost like an action plan, but what broke my heart, they couldn't grieve.
Mm.
They were so caught in the detail that in that moment when they most needed to grieve, they couldn't. And that always stayed with me. So, two promotions later, crash number two, everyone lived. And I was a very young, I was 28. And the family was from a small town in Indiana that I
Wow.
would in time ultimately oversee, because I was living in LA at the time. But what was fascinating, the guy was 31. He was my contemporary. And so when we think of things, we think of older.
Right.
We don't, even though I had, seen a lot and experienced a lot of, loss of life before, I hadn't lived in that other moment of crap. This is what they mean about incapacity, because I'm talking to his mom and dad and I'm saying, do you have access to his residence? No. Do you know where he banks? No. Do you know if he has filled out a power of attorney? No. Do you know this? No, 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 no. And because privacy laws are in place to protect us after we're age 18, it was the late 80s, so it was a little easier with our attorneys to work with and help. But honestly, that's a big pain in the butt, and we just aren't taught this. So again and again, this had happened. I mean, when I was in China, I came back when my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, which I pretty much am the one that diagnosed it, and my mom had had some heart issues. So I came back to the States with from United and worked out of Chicago and commuted for 5.5 years. So of course I worked 9/11.
Mm.
So, it's just that always kind of, I called it pig pen with the dirt. It just trailed me, but I wasn't sure, because from a business side, it was also occurring with team members had being diagnosed and finding that the company, our company hadn't been really good about that stuff either. And when I got to China, I was doing emergency plans for the country, with the Chinese government because they didn't have them. So
Wow.
this is, I call them step in plans. I mean, it's just something I've been doing kind of naturally and on my own. So before I left for China, I really made sure that mom and dad had updated things, because I had done, after coming back from that second crash, I did my first will, my first trust. I wrote out everything. I called it Lynn's trail of breadcrumbs as to everything I do and access and things, because I thought somebody, if they needed to help me, I need to give them a guideline.
Right.
So this is why my brother and sister especially are like, "You're an alien. We don't want to talk about it." I said, "Of course not. You're an ostrich, and I love you anyway." So I mean, with mom and dad, thankfully we had updated it, because the Alzheimer's, he wouldn't have had mental capacity to make changes. Mom
Right.
wouldn't have had access. I mean, it was just those kinds of learnings. So I reflected, when I moved ultimately to Montreal. I was working with IATA, heading up a commercial department. So my staff was in Geneva, Switzerland, and in Montreal. So I was kind of a little bit of everywhere. So second international assignment, second parent went down, and that's when mom was failing. So when I came back, I thought, all right, okay, big guy, here we got to talk about this. Like, God,
Yeah.
this is obviously around me for a reason. So what am I to do with it? And I thought, well, people are scared to have these conversations, and all the wonderful professionals that we work with to button ourselves up, they talk in their fancy lingo. Where's the layperson language? How can we like
Right.
demystify this and make it feel more empowering than freaking frightening? So that's when I decided to really look about being like a practical advocate for people. So I don't sell policies, and I'm not a financial planner, and I'm not an attorney, and I'm not any of that. But I have worked with all of them for years, and I love that business side of me. I mean, running a
Right.
multinational in China taught me a lot. So, I've played in every departmental access area that there is. And I just decided that the living planner could come into life here. And I wrote my book first, A Living Planner, What to Prepare Now Where You Were Living. I update it every year. It was kind of interesting to actually update it this year with the pandemic edition. But yeah, and it's there, and it's in little short chapters so we don't throw up because it's emotionally taxing for people. So
Yeah.
the pre-planning, the at a loss, ongoing follow-up, and little action sheets. But then I created well-being checkups, and I, even take a look at businesses and things. So I got to tell you, the biggest learning, I mean, because I know that we were kind of talking in advance of this of what doesn't go well. Okay, so the success was I felt the fear and decided I was going to face everything and roar. The failure is, oh my God, I am buzzkill at a cocktail party. People don't like to talk about this stuff, and I'm considering it part of life. For me, it's as natural as breathing.
Right. Right.
But that fear part for people, it really is kind of that shutdown. And yet, if they could have ever been on the other end of what I saw in those moments when it happens, or in my case, 5.5 years of my dad's Alzheimer's of watching decline. In my mom's case, 4 years plus of her decline. I mean, those are not easy times. And when you have things that have been taken care of in advance, it just makes living and celebrating the person that you love more, it's easier. And
You
I'm
know, I have to throw this out there because we're going through it right now.
I'm sorry.
No, it's interesting because we've had several losses recently, and each time it's like, okay, we have to do this. We need to make sure our stuff is easy to find. We need to make sure that our kids know where to find information. And it's interesting because there's a reason you and I are meeting, but because it may not be a comfortable conversation, but holy cow, the peace of mind when you know everything's taken care of and you can just live and appreciate them for where it is. I think that's important. So why not take the time now to just let's figure this out and get this done so everyone knows where everything
Well,
is.
we just back, like who's got your back is the real theory. And honestly, those breadcrumbs are a pain. Okay, so I am the goofball that I've had it's never a once and done. And people keep saying, "Oh, it's done." I'm like, yeah. State laws change, national laws change. I mean, I've had powers of attorney die. I've had beneficiaries die or being. I mean, it is an evolving thing, just like life is an evolving thing. I mean, it's not like we just open up a banking account and our money goes in and stays in and like, oh! So anything that we do, I mean, I grumble when I do my taxes, and I kind of I grumble a little bit when I do this, but it's just a habit that was built. But I started my habit in my 20s. And
Yeah.
I'm in my sixth
Yeah.
decade. So, when you've had years of it, it's as natural for me as, pardon the pun for my dead father dentist, brushing my teeth and
Right.
flossing. I mean,
Right.
it's natural. So, but I mean, I do appreciate the fear that people have, but it's also something that it really stinks when we're not ready.
So, what can we do to be ready? Do you have some ideas or tips that can maybe guide us so that we can take that fear out of it and just start doing?
Okay, so the cool part, the reason this thing is called the Living Planner is, okay, I don't know, Colorado's having fires. I live in California, we're having fires. This is not about always just that other end of life. This is about existing and making sure that us as people and our businesses can sustain interruption. And I mean, 2020 is teaching us quite a bit of
That's
it.
a big interruption.
And so those interruptions are not, I mean, how do we sustain? And so when you're especially in a business community like this, it's hard because a lot of client base has shrunk. I mean, disposable cash has shrunk. But I want you to just think about navigating all the moving pieces of life. And when we're navigating something, there are three elements to navigating. One is position, two is planning, and three is route. So, what I mean by position is, I mean, we have a personal status. We can be single, maybe not. We can have dependents. Maybe they're young, maybe they're older. We can have pets. I mean, I've worked with people that have horses that will pretty much outlive them. So then what? What is your living status? Are you living solo? Are there others in the household? If you're solo, who has access to your household? Think about the service providers that help us at home too. And I mean, that's the interesting part because that is all about position and the planning. Okay, we're not taught about the administrative side of life. I mean, so ask yourselves some like high level questions. Who knows what about what you do? Who has access to what you access? What kinds of policies do you have that are part of your life, whether it's an auto policy or a health policy or an insurance policy? Think about the policies because on a couple levels. One, there's a beneficiary on them, but two, who knows about them? Are there payments due and things of that level? Have you completed some legal documents from a health perspective and a financial perspective and a protection perspective for you? And then where in the world do you file or store the important information? And, in the old, I used to always kind of think of it, I have my fireproof safe, I have things like that. But then I kind of, before COVID, I was thinking, my heavens, well, if I'm not home, how do I have access? Now the cloud can be kind of spooky because hacking exists. So, I have learned living in China that a plan B, C, and D is always best. So, yes, I have paper. Yes, I have USB. Yes, I have this. So, just have whatever you're comfortable with. Be your guide and be your friend. And think of it, if you will, from a short term perspective, a mid-term perspective, a long term perspective, and always remember the annual review. So the route that we take really kind of goes into a faction of where I like to separate it out of, okay, how does that apply at home and how does that apply for my work? And then who are the team of advisors that I have, that I work with personally but also professionally? And what I mean by that is just from your look at your health side first, because without health, we're kind of we're not all here. And that would be your doctors and your dentists and your veterinarians and like health plans and things that you have. Then you kind of got to look at your financial life because without access to that from an accounting, banking, money management, stock, 401ks, SEPs, QRPs, credit cards, crypto, all of that side of life kind of keeps you floating. And then the legal piece, I'm always going to come back to that because state by state, we have 50 different states here, and there are laws that are different in each state. And if you have a checking account, you really do have an estate because you have a place where money is that goes out, and you have bills that usually are paid from that. And it's important that you take a look. And estate size is different by state. And I mean, the layperson interpretation I'm happy to always help with, but especially when it comes to what a power of attorney is. I mean, what really does that mean? And that means that somebody's here to help us when we're living only, because when we're not here, we don't need a power of attorney. I look at it as someone that can speak for me if and when I can't.
Right.
But they also have to be strong enough to stand up to the other opinions that might come in to
Right.
always represent me. And then you have like your insurance, and then you have like your backups that are just really important in your world. So if we can look at it and segment it almost like that, it's easier to complete the stuff.
That's really good. And I think it's so important if we can just realize by having that conversation while you still have all your faculties, you still can like talk it through and make sure everybody really understands what you're feeling, what your wants are, right? And because otherwise, there's a whole lot of confusion around, well, what did she really mean by that? Or,
And every
oh,
family isn't in a situation where talking is easy. Okay.
right,
And so
right.
that part we need to acknowledge. And I mean, in the case of my lovely drama mama, it was pretty hilarious because it was more of the, oh, Lenny can tell everybody. She'll keep them, she'll keep everybody posted. But there were hurt feelings. I mean, my sister's feelings were hurt. I mean, she was not a happy camper that mom talked to her about that. Now my brother was relieved. So, and he always kind of had my backside on that. But my sister really took that hard, and especially toward the end of life with some decisions of palliative care and do not resuscitate and things at that level. I mean, my sister was in complete disagreement with it and was trying to execute on her own. And I always had to play the middle guy. So it's not always fun. And depending on your situation, I can tell you, especially for the younger set, it's like you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And so, who are those resources that can actually help you out? I had a local attorney ask me to help a 23-year-old who inherited multiple millions from her grandfather, and there was a horrible family situation. And she said they all said, "Lynn, you're the only one we know that could actually like help teach her and not scare her, but also have her understand what responsibilities are, and we don't want to do that."
Wow. Wow. Okay, so before we went on, you were telling me about a workshop that you have coming up, and I
That's
love
my
the
COVID
idea.
shift, you guys. Okay.
Hey,
Because of the wonderful inconsistency of my income during life, anyway, because people are scared to death of me, and even though they're not scared of me, they're scared of the topic. Um, I've never really marketed because each situation is so personal, and I want to make sure that people have their information. So I just have gone by referral. So I decided maybe it's back to my RA days and head res days, but I have mentored young kids when they leave high school and start college, and it's fascinating to listen to the questions, and it's really been enlightening for me, but also fun for me. And they are the ones that are encouraging me to kind of do this because of the conversations that I have with them that they haven't really had before. And
mm,
so I am launching my Adulting Adventures Ahead series for like the 18 to 25-year olds.
I love
Ultimately,
it.
you guys, I'm going to also reinvent HR so that people recognize from a human side, but that will come in time. Anyway, so this part, and I've talked about it even with Joy for a while, but Joy, I'm actually learning the technology now, and that's where I'm fully ensconced. And so I'm starting off with the Gen Z Life Summit
I
at
love it.
Gen Z Life Hackers Summit. And I'm just having experts across from the fields of banking and debt and credit and college planning and financial planning
Ah,
and law and crisis navigation and like time management and things like that that are coming to share their personal story because we're going to look back so you can look forward.
I
What are
love
the
that.
things that we would have benefited from knowing um,
Right.
from that side? And so it'll be free for people to attend each day. And if they want an all access pass, it'll be $27. And because, I want to make sure that it's
That is
accessible.
awesome.
And then I'll donate 10% of all the profits to a climate change or nonprofit organization because it's really important that we leave the world in an available state for our next ones coming up. So, God help me with the technology. I'm learning video editing right now, and I am
We
also
can help you with that.
doing all kinds, I mean, building my first funnel and
Oh
all of
yeah,
that
we got
other
you,
kind
girl.
of stuff, you guys. It's a hoot. But you know what? I think no matter where we are, ask yourself, who are you? What's your purpose? And what are you here really to do? And find ways that support you and just find a different way. But also don't be scared of risk mitigation. Okay. Just don't.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
at the end of the day, with our heads in the sand, we are not leaving ourselves in a good position. And we can be inspiring and uplifting and all of that other kind of stuff and prepared. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be either or. So if we can get into a mind shift about that part, I think seeing devastation, utter devastation, time and time again, gave me that full appreciation of living in life. And I
Oh,
want us
yeah.
to live like me amazing lives.
Yes.
That's
I
what we're
mean,
here to
I'm
do.
not quitting anytime soon. So
Right. That's what we're here to do.
I love it. And especially I think as business women too, who are now in the world creating our own businesses and doing more than we've ever done before.
Yeah.
We need to protect that for everyone else and so they know how to help if we're not there to be able to help, right? So
Well, and the administrative side of life is not always, the most fun. And I get that. But you know what? There are some of us that are just quite detailed enough that we can be like the helpers on that deal. But it's
yeah,
also engage in communication. because I'll tell you, I did not hesitate to have those tough conversations. Even I did them lovingly. And
Right.
I knew my parents and I know my siblings really, really well. And I know that I can be what I called Chinese water torture. I would give a little drop, and I'd step it back.
Yeah.
Drop, and step it back. I mean, who wants to be slammed in the face with a truck? I mean, you don't.
Right.
It polite, and I mean, how do we want to treat people? So if we can lovingly display. Now, did I do that really well in my 20s with all my girlfriends and their husbands and stuff when after like my first crash? No, I sat them down in bars and said, "Oh my God, you guys, you need to do this. Do you have guardians for your kids? Do you have this? Do you have that?" Woo, 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 woo. And they'd look at me like, "Don't have another drink, Lynn." But every one of them all got their ducks in a row.
Yeah. We all need to do that.
They realize it's 60% of Americans don't have a will. Okay. That's a
Wow.
statistic as of this year. When you
Wow.
got, young people first and now starting out, I mean, frankly, we're in charge of our legal lives when we're 18. Okay. And so there are some little snippets that we can do to protect ourselves, like and that. So what I'm going to be, the summit will launch into a webinar on their health decisions to make because that is an easy thing. And I've researched all 50 states and, all of that stuff. But I mean, let's get some initial protection under,
Right.
and then we'll build from there and go into financials. And then we can go into data and reputation analysis and all that stuff. So my business side is really happy and my heart side has never been happier.
I love that. Okay. So your book, The Living Will.
The living
No, The Living Planner. I
on
was
my
like, wait.
website, I had a wonderful life experience with Amazon for all you wannabe authors. Um, People were trying to be me, and they were selling my 23.95 book for up to $200, and that isn't what I wanted. And so I went to task with Amazon and said, they said, well, we can't, we don't know who you sold it to, and this is an open marketplace, and I said, and good. I figured that's where they were going. I said, perfect. Would you please provide me with all the sales information that you haven't provided me? Because they don't
Wow.
provide it. And they said, well, no, that's our information. And I said, then how can I contact them? So that's when I took my ebook down and I left my print book up. They got mad. So now they say no quantity. So I sell my book on my website.
Good.
livingwater.com. But I put on my author page, this author respects intellectual property. If
Oh
you're
my
interested in my
goodness.
book, but just know that Amazon's amazing and they have certainly sustained a lot of us during this time. But when it comes just like Be Live, they own our IP
Yeah.
basically is what they want to do. Well, we don't have to give it to them.
Right. Right. I I am going to connect with you after this because we have so much to chat about,
Well,
but
and
this
life
is
life
wonderful.
has been a blast, and being a consultant, because I love to take a peek at businesses. I stay, up here, but I also provide some, guidelines for people too. So, be who you are, protect family businesses, you guys,
Yeah.
especially you with family businesses. It's really the hardest part is the communication. And I've got some great free resources for anybody. Um, there's a play, it's called the Conversation Project, and it has people. It's almost a little guidepost, and I participate in quarterly calls with their organization. It's a nonprofit, and I'm like the only goofball doing what I do. But they are very, very helpful with ways to start having that conversation and guideposts for you. So it's important. Communication isn't everyone's strong suit. I also know
Yeah.
a woman in Massachusetts who is like the whiz kid that has how to handle any difficult conversation. And it's anything, she'll be on my summit for the,
Good.
because she's just amazing for all ages. And she's a mom of teenagers too, but she's also a liver of life and has had business experience and life experience. And this is something she's been called to do in her COVID shift.
Wow.
So, I think it's an opportunity for our own awakening. When we slow down, we can speed up.
Yes.
We can actually take in and appreciate a little differently, maybe what is supposed to be here for us on the path.
I love this. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I
I
hope
so
this was
appreciate it.
helpful. And you guys, Lynn at thelivingplanner.com. Let me know if I can be of any assistance, but
I
just
love that.
hang in there and be good to you.
I posted the link to thelivingplanner.com so
Oh,
that people can check it out. And I really appreciate you sharing. I know I'm going to go get it. So why haven't I right now? I don't know, but I will. And I really enjoyed.
Amanda, thank you. And I know I love you too. I mean, it's the kick about it is take small doses too. I mean, you gauge your own emotion because you know what? I wrote it. When I first wrote it, it was like I thought I'll pretend it's a James Pattison book. The chapters don't have to feed on one another. So if something in particular is kind of like screaming at you for attention, peek at it.
Read that first.
Yeah, but just kind of go. I don't know. Private jets fly at 42,000. Commercial fly at 35. So I pretend I'm at 42,000 and just take a peek. And then how can we make this a little easier for people?
I love it.
But there's a
That was
contact
so awesome. What a great.
card on my website too. So ask questions. I mean, I have people that
Thank
pop in
you.
all the time and ask.
Oh, that is so awesome. What a great service that you offer for people. And thank you for sharing some tips for us to start that communication and make sure that our businesses are protected and our families are protected. And it's how we want it when we
Well,
can't make
and
this.
navigate, you guys.
Yeah.
We don't, I mean, come on. If I hopped in the car and said, okay, I'm driving to
Let's just
Illinois
go.
today, I mean, I would plan out my route, wouldn't I?
Let's hope so.
And I want to know my starting position because you always want to know what your starting position is. And then you would kind of plan out the route and then you'd execute the route. So go have fun. It's just small little segments.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. What a great way to start out our Tuesday. Thank you for sharing your tips from the top with us. And I will be reaching out to you very soon.
Well, please do. And everybody have a beautiful day. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.